Imagine walking into a store just looking to make your day a little brighter, when you're hit with something you never saw coming: a manager hurling insults at a customer just because of their skin color. That's exactly what happened to James, a kind-hearted man simply trying to buy a gift for his daughter. As tensions rose, customers froze, unsure of what to do, while the manager's words echoed throughout the store. But here's the twist: what happened after James decided to stand his ground set off a chain of events that reached all the way to the company's CEO. And trust me, their response was anything but ordinary. You won't believe the decision they made when faced with this ugly truth. This story will leave you stunned and inspired, proving that sometimes the most unexpected actions can turn a dark moment into something unforgettable. Stay tuned. James wasn't the type to make a scene, but something about this moment made him pause. The manager's cutting remarks weren't just aimed at him. They echoed a deeper issue that had likely gone unchecked for far too long. Other customers stood nearby, their eyes darting between James and the manager, unsure whether to intervene or stay silent. The air was heavy with discomfort, and James could feel every gaze, every whisper, as he tried to process what was happening. What made it worse was how calm the manager appeared, as if this behavior was nothing out of the ordinary. James knew he couldn't just walk away. Not this time. He pulled out his phone, recording as much as he could, determined to shed light on what so many face but few speak about. What he didn't know was that this one act of courage would spark a reaction no one could have expected. As James continued recording, the store grew quieter. A few customers began murmuring in disbelief, while others avoided eye contact, pretending not to notice what was unfolding. One woman near the register glanced at James, her face a mix of sympathy and uncertainty, but she said nothing. The manager, however, didn't seem fazed. He crossed his arms, his tone growing harsher as he doubled down, clearly irritated that James wasn't backing down. James didn't respond immediately. Instead, he focused on capturing every word, every movement. He wasn't sure where this was going, but something told him this moment needed to be documented. Meanwhile, employees behind the counter exchanged uneasy glances. One young cashier looked visibly shaken, as if she wanted to intervene but didn't dare risk her job. What no one in the room realized was that this video would soon travel far beyond the store walls, igniting a conversation that couldn't be ignored. The tension in the store reached a breaking point as James stood firm, his phone still recording. The manager, now visibly annoyed, began raising his voice, trying to justify his actions. His words were sharp, cutting through the awkward silence, but James didn't flinch. Instead, he calmly asked, "Is this how you treat all your customers?" The question hung in the air, heavy and unanswerable. More customers began pulling out their phones, recording from different angles. Some quietly whispered their support to James, while others simply watched, unsure how to react. The young cashier who had been silently watching finally stepped forward, her voice trembling as she tried to reason with the manager. But instead of listening, the manager dismissed her, his frustration boiling over. Unbeknownst to the manager, these recordings were already being shared online. As the store buzzed with tension, James knew this wasn't just about him anymore. It was about exposing a much bigger issue. What would happen next, though, was something no one could have predicted. As James stood his ground, the store's atmosphere shifted yet again. A man in a suit, who had been quietly observing from the back of the store, stepped forward. No one had noticed him before, but his confident stride and calm demeanor immediately caught everyone's attention. "Excuse me," he said, his voice firm but composed. "I need to have a word with you." He was looking directly at the manager. The manager, startled, quickly tried to regain control of the situation. "I don't know who you think you are, but I'm handling this," he said dismissively. But the man didn't back down. Instead, he pulled out a badge and introduced himself as a regional supervisor for the company. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the realization set in. This wasn't just any bystander. The supervisor turned to James and calmly asked to see the video. Meanwhile, the manager's confidence crumbled, and the tension in the room hit a new high. Something big was about to happen, and everyone could feel it. The regional supervisor reviewed James's video in silence, his expression unreadable. The store was dead quiet, with every customer and employee watching anxiously. The manager stood frozen, his earlier bravado now replaced with visible unease. When the supervisor finally looked up, his tone was sharp and unwavering. "This is unacceptable," he said, his words slicing through the tension. "Not just as a representative of this company, but as a basic standard of human decency." He turned to the manager, who was now visibly sweating. "You're relieved of your duties effective immediately," the supervisor declared. Gasps filled the room as the manager stammered in disbelief, attempting to argue, but it was too late. The supervisor signaled for him to leave, and security escorted him out as the crowd murmured in shock. Then, turning to James, the supervisor extended an apology. But just as the situation seemed resolved, the supervisor revealed the twist. The CEO had already seen the video, and the company was taking unprecedented steps to ensure this never happened again. They weren't just issuing a statement. They were launching a full investigation into store practices and implementing company-wide training. As James left the store, the other customers clapped, knowing this moment wasn't just a victory for him, it was a turning point for everyone. As James walked out of the store, he couldn't help but reflect on everything that had unfolded. What started as a routine errand had turned into a moment of change, one that no one in the store would forget anytime soon. The video he recorded quickly gained traction online, sparking conversations about accountability, respect, and the importance of standing up against injustice. Messages of support poured in from strangers who thanked him for speaking out. True to their word, the company followed through. They publicly apologized to James and announced sweeping changes to their training and policies. The CEO personally reached out to James, expressing gratitude for shedding light on an issue that needed addressing. For James, it wasn't about going viral. It was about ensuring no one else had to experience what he did. Sometimes, change begins with one voice willing to speak up. And in this case, that voice made all the difference.